Over the past 2 decades, there's been a growing number of individuals who have been victims of severely violent crime, including family survivors of homicide victims, that have requested a face-to-face meeting with the person responsible for committing the crime. They oftentimes express a need to let that individual know the devastating impact the crime had upon their lives, upon their families' lives, and to get answers to many lingering questions. These sessions are called victim-offender dialogue, and they typically occur in maximum security prisons long after conviction and sentencing of the offender. In 1993, Texas became the first state to offer victim-offender mediation and dialogue services on a statewide basis through the Victim Services Unit of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Several years later, Ohio began a similar program in 1996 through the Office of Victim Services at the Ohio Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Today, there are numerous other states that are developing similar programs. All of these initiatives require close and active collaboration between victim service providers and Department of Corrections staff. Victim-offender dialogue is grounded in 4 very essential elements. First, the process is meant to be victim-initiated, and victims should be given as much control over the process as possible, and also be given as many choices. Second, the process is meant to be entirely voluntary. Victims and offenders should never be pressured or coerced into this type of a process. And it's important to realize that victim-offender dialogue is not meant for all victims of crime and those who commit these violent acts. Third, the type of mediation or facilitation used in these meetings is very much focused on the dialogue between the actual parties, the individual victim and offender, and other support people that might be present. The focus is not, obviously, upon any kind of settlement type of mediation. This type of mediation is called by many humanistic mediation, and it really focuses on the importance of connecting with the parties, getting to know them, feeling comfortable with them so they feel comfortable with you, but not taking sides, still remaining impartial. It emphasizes the importance of several, if not many, individual separate preparation sessions with these individuals well before ever bringing them face to face. Once you bring the parties together, the humanistic style of mediation involves a very non-directive style. Mediators are very much in the background. They are not talking much. They are fully present and able to intervene at any point, but they intentionally try to stay very much in the background so that the individuals themselves can talk directly with each other. Fourth, the importance of preparation cannot be overemphasized. The quality of an actual victim-offender dialogue is directly related to the extent and quality of the preparation done many months before ever bringing the parties together. This preparation focuses on listening deeply to the stories of these individuals, the enormous impact the crime has had on the lives of both parties, particularly the victimized person. And it involves helping them identify their needs and expectations for coming together and meeting each other, and preparing them for the actual process so that their process anxiety, their anxiety over anticipating coming together, can be reduced as much as possible so that when they meet face to face, they can talk directly with each other. The following simulation involves a mother whose 18-year-old son was killed during a robbery of a gas station. She requested a meeting with one of the men convicted of killing her son. This occurred in a maximum security prison. What you will be seeing are very abbreviated segments of the preparation meetings with both this mother and the offender, and an abbreviated version of the actual dialogue. Actual preparation meetings and dialogue sessions are far more lengthy than what you'll be able to see in this video format. Gloria, I'm so glad we were able to meet here and set up the meeting today. As I mentioned on the phone last week, Catherine Harp is going to be working with me as a co-facilitator in the process. And
Okay.
Catherine, this is
Good to meet you. Good.
When I talked to you on the phone, I think I mentioned, I know that you had contacted the Department of Corrections asking to meet the man who killed your son 2 years ago.
Yes.
And Catherine and I have only been given very brief information about the actual circumstances. Could you tell us what actually did happen and how it affected you?
Well, my son was at work, and Peter, and he's the second oldest child, and it was very devastating to get the call in the middle of the night saying that my son wouldn't come home, that he had been killed on his workplace, at his workplace.
Was it a robbery or?
Yes, it was. They were robbing the place, and I guess they turned the gun on him and shot him. And it was very, devastating. I'm a widow, and I have other children, and it was very devastating for our family.
So this is your second loss then?
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. How old are your other children?
They range from 21 to 9.
Okay. And how are they doing?
They're not doing real well because he was a good young man and active in school, and he helped around the house a lot and helped with his younger brothers and sisters, and it just was very, devastating for them.
And, I'm curious, Gloria, it's been 2 years since it occurred. Now you've asked to meet this man,
Yes.
David Adams. What led you to want to meet him?
Well, since he was younger, and I guess I just want to know what happened, why he took my son's life. I just would like to know. It's something that, I've always been very curious about, and I feel that it would be beneficial not only to me, but to my other children.
In terms of what you hope to get out of meeting him, what would be the absolute best thing that could occur?
That finally I can put some closure to the incident. To know just why it happened, what motivated them to do something like this.
What would be the most disappointing thing if you actually meet with him? And
to see that he didn't have any remorse, or there was that I didn't feel that there was any forgiveness. That would be the most devastating thing for me, to feel that he didn't care. That it was just somebody's life and they just took it and, left.
the reason I ask that is it's so important that your expectations going in are reasonably kind of on target. Because, there's benefits and risks with something like this. If you go in with expectations real high and his ability to deliver on that is very low, that could be a re-victimization. It could hurt. And we can't promise or guarantee anything. We can say that based on quite a bit of experience we've had and in other states, when done right, this kind of a process, it tends to be quite helpful in different ways for different people. But if people aren't prepared, it also, there are some risks because it could bring up a lot of painful emotions. It's been 2 years, but I know this is still very close to you. So we want to point out there's, some risk as well as
And
benefits.
I understand that, but still, I'll take what I can get, and if it's good, if good comes from it, then good. If it doesn't, then I understand that too. But at least I have given it a chance, and I've met him and found, and talked to him. And I guess that's what I'm looking for, just to be able to understand or look in his eyes to see if I can figure out why he did it. So I'm willing to take that risk.
Did you attend the trial?
Yes, I did.
And did you have any feeling about him at that time?
Yes.
Does it seem like he is someone that you could sit down with?
At the trial, I was angry, but as the trial went on, I began to be, I wanted to meet him. I wanted to try to understand him as much as I could, he's almost the same age as my son Peter. And I thought, what if the roles were changed? How would how could I be a benefit to that mother if the roles were changed?
As we look toward the possibility of doing this, it's real important. I think I mentioned this to you on the phone. There's no guarantee that there'll be a meeting, because he, will need to go and meet with David Adams in the following week, and to see if he's open to doing this, because it's voluntary to him, just as it's totally voluntary for you as initiating the process. And we have to take each step at a time, initially talking on the phone, meeting Catherine and I with you. We'll probably need to meet with you once or twice more, after we talk with David Adams and after he gives more thought to whether he's willing to do this. So it can take a little longer than some people would want.
Well, that's fine, and I'm willing to go, as long as it takes to meet him, it's fine. And if it doesn't happen, that's also fine.
That's okay, too. Well, if it does come to a meeting, and it very well might, we often encourage people, in fact, we always encourage people to consider a support person that they might want to be present during the meeting, a friend, a family member, a counselor, whoever. Is there anyone you would like to be with you?
No, I would like to do this myself.
Just yourself? Okay.
Yes.
And many people choose that, too. Would you like me to explain a little more about what will actually happen if you come together?
Yes, I would like that.
We again first meet with both parties separately, as we're doing here with you, and typically 2 or 3 times, sometimes more. When we come together, we'll meet at the prison, and we'll provide an opportunity for you, Gloria, to go out and have a tour of the prison beforehand, if you want. Have you ever visited a prison before?
No, I haven't, and I think that would be very interesting.
Prisons are scary places for anybody, especially people that haven't been there. And so it tends to be helpful to go out beforehand, both to get a feel for it, just what it looks like. You'll get a tour, and we'll also arrange for you to be able to pick out a room that you feel comfortable with. There's not a lot of choices, but at this prison, I know there's at least 3 rooms: the chapel, a conference room, and the visiting room. And it's really up to you. Whichever one you feel the most comfortable in, we'll work out with the prison staff.
Okay.
Then when we actually meet, frankly, the beginning of the mediation, everyone's kind of nervous. It's understandable. And we'll have you sitting at the table in the room that you choose. Catherine and you will be sitting there, and then I'll go out and get David Adams and bring him in. And Catherine and I would be sitting at the end of the table, and on one side you'd be sitting, and then David. And we'll say a few things to just kind of open it up, kind of go over some things we've already talked about. And then what we usually do is give the person who is victimized the first opportunity to kind of tell your story to the person, the impact it had on you, to ask questions. And then we give the other person, the inmate, time to kind of explain from their perspective what happened, why they did this. Do you feel comfortable with that, like you beginning?
Yes, I think I can do that.
We encourage that because, frankly, victims don't get a lot of attention in the justice system, and we offer that if you feel comfortable with that. We'll also be asking David if he wants a support person with him. And if he does, we'll let you know, just to make sure that, we don't want to have any surprises.
Okay.
We want you to be pretty aware of what's going to happen.
Uh-huh.
After Catherine and I say a few things at the beginning of the mediation session, we're very much in the background. We're not going to be talking a lot. You'll each have time to kind of tell your perspective on what happened, and then ask whatever questions you have. We'll be totally present and available if you need help. But this is a time for the two of you to talk. And if you need a break, that can happen. You can just let us know. We might determine that we need a break. These sessions tend to be anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, sometimes longer. It's totally up to you.
Okay.
You and David, if things are over in an hour, you feel that you've gotten what you need, then it ends.
If you change your mind about a support person, that's okay. Maybe you want to think about it. Maybe there's someone that was real supportive at the time of your loss or during the trial or, in the last 2 years. And it may not be someone that has to be in the room at the time, but maybe just available, sitting outside or something.
In case I need them.
Yeah.
For support. Or someone just to lean on in case I need it.
Yeah.
I understand.
Okay.
Are there any other questions you have of Catherine and I about just how the process works?
No, I don't think so. I think you explained it, and I understand that, the high points and the low points, it might not go off. You might not want to meet with me. And I do understand that. I'll just, simply play it by ear and hope that we can get together, because I feel that it would be good for me, and maybe it might be good for him also, for Peter.
People that have gone through a homicide as a family survivor have many different reasons why they want to meet. Many also want to let the offender know the impact it had on their lives. I'm curious, is that a need of yours, or is that
Yes,
not?
it is, because it really devastated us. As I mentioned before, Peter was a good child. He worked hard, and you expect him to go to work and to come home. This didn't happen this particular night. And that, that's devastating on our whole family. Here, his life was snuffed out in a matter of seconds. And that is devastating, because you expect to hear from him. I still expect to see him come through the door from work, but it's not going to happen, even though it's been 2 years.
Well, before we end this session, Gloria, one last question I have. Is there anything that we've talked about here that you'd feel uncomfortable with us sharing with David when we go out to meet him? We're not going to give a report like Gloria said all this, but in case he asks a question about why you want to do this, is there anything you'd feel uncomfortable with us sharing?
There's nothing I feel uncomfortable with.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with everything that I've said, and, and my expectations are, if I can meet him, then fine. If I can't, that's fine also.
Okay. Many people prefer to sit around a table, like a big conference table. Some people like a smaller table, just kind of a circular table. And some just like kind of an open area, no table at all. Do you have any preference at all? Or?
I would prefer the round table, if possible.
Okay, we can work that out.
Okay.
Well, thanks again for coming together. I know it was hard scheduling this meeting. And Catherine and I will be back in touch with you after we go out and meet David Adams next week. We'll be meeting him at the prison. We'll be in touch in about a week and a half.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
David, I'm Mark Umbright, and this is Catherine Harp. We work with the Restorative Justice Program, and I talked with your case manager, Tim, last week, and I'm really glad that he was able to arrange this meeting so we could come in. He may have mentioned to you that the mother of the young man that was killed in the robbery, Gloria Allen, she's expressed some interest in meeting with you at some time if you're willing to. And this is totally voluntary on your part. This is not, you're not required to do this, and we're here to talk with you about both the program and particularly to hear from you, what really happened from your perspective. We don't have complete case files. We just got a brief description of the robbery and then the murder that occurred. We don't know, exactly what happened or how it even affected you, obviously. And it would be real helpful if you could give us a sense of, what actually happened on that evening 2 years ago.
So this is going to be the same kind of a question that she's going to ask me too? Or?
Yeah, she'll probably ask you that. She is concerned about, why did you do this and what led up to it and what were you and your brother Rick thinking of?
I guess I don't really have an answer as to why we did it, but we'd been partying and drinking and all that day, and I guess later on that evening we got bored, and he and I have always ran around together and committed small crimes and done stuff, and he mentioned, let's go burglarize this store, and we went down there to do it, and there was a person working. And one thing led to another, and we were going to just put him in the back room and leave. But my brother started talking about, we can't just leave him because he'd identify us. And anyways, my brother and I just went back and forth, and he talked about shooting him. And I didn't even know he had a gun at the time, but he did, and pulled a gun out and talked about shooting him. And I just said, no way, no. Anyways, he just turned right around and shot the guy right in the head. And I just didn't, I was like, oh my God. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. It just didn't it wasn't supposed to turn out that way. I had no idea that night would end that way.
Had you been in there before? Did you know him?
Mm-mm.
Had you seen him?
I understand that you were arrested several days after. Is that right? What was that like?
Pretty scary. I knew. I didn't sleep since the time it happened, and it was just really a scary thought to think, people watching and looking and going to find us. And sure enough, they did. I guess I felt scared to death, but yet kind of thankful that, there was an end to it. So my brother and I have been ripping and running for years, It's just a tragedy that it had to end like this.
What were you guys feeling like right afterwards? You robbed this gas station. You guys took off quick. What was it like right afterwards?
It all happened so fast, I don't really remember much about it. It just all happened. The whole part of it, from the time I started arguing with Rick about whether or not to shoot this guy, I didn't want to. From that point on, it became a blur. It just happened. Everything just happened, and I don't remember much about it. It just, fear, I guess, took over. Shock.
Now it's 2 years later. How are you feeling about it as you think back on it?
Real devastated that, because of my brother and I, we've, probably ruined a whole lot of people's lives. Literally ruined them. And the guy that was shot his family, and then our family, friends, and everything. Everything's affected. Somebody's not coming home, and two other people are stuck in a place like this for a long time. It's a very sad thing all the way around.
Have you been in touch much with your parents? And how are they feeling about this?
They just sat back and just said, see, pretty much told you so. Because we'd always been in trouble, rebels.
Did they attend the trial?
They, no, they didn't want to. They were, too sad, mad. Pretty much they wanted to disown us,
Well, when you heard about the mother of this young man wanting to meet with you, what were you thinking? What were your initial reactions?
Well, I guess I just, to like this moment now, I don't understand why she'd want to meet with me, but unless, I am real nervous about it. I'm willing to do it for the most part, but I become unwilling when I start to think why, I guess I don't see much reasoning for it, but.
Would it be helpful if we described a little bit about how this program works?
Yeah, it would.
The first part involves a lot of preparation work, meeting separately with both of you. Last week, Catherine and I met with Gloria Allen. In addition to this meeting with you today, we'll go back and meet with Miss Allen in the next week or two. We'll come back and see you, check in how things are going. And a lot of this preparation work is focused on both having us learn more about what happened and how it's affected both of you, to explain the program, potential benefits and risks, and to also help you with kind of clarifying expectations, what you really want to get out of this, both of you, so that you don't have expectations this high and all you can get is down here. So we spend quite a bit of time just kind of listening to your perspective, your needs, and helping explain the program. That can take anywhere from 2 to 3 to sometimes 5 or 6 meetings. And it totally depends on kind of how things move. We take each step at a time. Once we determine that, and you determine, the two of you, that you're ready to meet, then we'll contact the staff here at the prison, both Tim, your case manager, and the warden's office, and we'll schedule a time, and at Miss Allen's convenience, of course, where we can meet here. And we'll block out at least 3 hours, but we'll also make arrangements in case it goes a little longer that we have time as well. Most of these sessions tend to be around 3 hours. A few are quite a bit shorter, and a few are quite a bit longer. Again, it's totally up to how things develop. We don't go in there with any expected outcome that you need to do this or Miss Allen needs to do this or it has to be 3 hours. We set the framework for allowing a safe place for the two of you to talk together. When we actually meet in the prison, we'll first spend a little time with Miss Allen right before. Then we'll come in and spend 15, 20 minutes with you right before, just checking in. How you doing? How did you sleep last night? Do you have any questions before we begin in a few moments? Then we'll bring you into a room, and Miss Allen would be there. Probably she'd be there with Catherine, and I'll go out and get you and bring you in. And that's kind of, everyone's a little nervous at that point. And so we'll kind of open things up, just say a few things about what our role is, what we'll be doing, and then we'll turn to Gloria Allen and ask her to think back on when the crime occurred, the impact it's had on her life, and to tell you directly And she won't be talking to us. She'll be talking directly to you, David. And when she's through, you'll have time to kind of tell Miss Allen directly, what did happen? Why did you guys do this? And then there'll be plenty of time for you to just ask each other questions. She's got a lot of questions, and the two of you can just talk. And we'll be there. We'll be very much in the background. We'll be saying a few things in the beginning. If you need help, like if you're really getting stuck, if there's too long of silences, some silence can be very helpful, and it'll be there, I'm sure. But if it gets too extended and people are getting too uncomfortable, we'll help with that. You can take a break if you need to. If either one of you, or we might determine we really need to take a break, or if things are getting just too overwhelming, you just need a little space. Or, just more practical reasons, if you need a drink of water or use a restroom, whatever, you can take breaks. And at the end, some of these sessions actually end up in a written kind of agreement. Most of them don't in these kind of very violent cases, but sometimes there can be actual agreements, where for example, a parent of a murdered child might want to talk about the possibility of setting up a memorial fund to donate money into, to honor their child, maybe at the school they went to. I don't know if that's going to come up in this situation. And if it did, that's something that would have to be agreeable to both of you, not just to Miss Allen, but that you felt comfortable with something like that. And if it was developed, we would write that down. But again, written agreements typically are not real common in these kind of situations. So that's kind of a general idea of how it would flow. And then right after the session, we'd spend about 15, 20 minutes with Miss Allen, it's what we call debriefing, just checking in how it went. And we'd also spend about 15, 20 minutes with you separately, checking in on how it went. And most of the time, this involves just one meeting. Okay. Occasionally, there might be a follow-up meeting, but usually it's one meeting.
Okay.
Miss Allen also has the option to have a support person there with her, and that could be a relative or a neighbor, perhaps someone from her church. So there's a chance there might be someone else present. When we first spoke with Miss Allen, she didn't name anyone that she wanted there, but just as we were leaving, she thought that she might reconsider that. But if she does decide to have a support person there, we'll let you know so that you don't come into the room and just find this extra person there. So you'll have, you'll know ahead.
Okay.
And, David, you also have that option. In fact, we would encourage considering having a support person. It could be a prison chaplain, a counselor. Do you have any interest in having anyone there with you? Or?
No, I'll just go alone.
You prefer just doing it alone then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That'd be better. It's hard enough as it is with,
Mm-hmm.
whoever's going to be there as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Myself will be fine.
Something else I forgot to mention, when we begin, when we're in the prison and we begin the actual meeting, it can be kind of uncomfortable because during the introductions, like, should I shake hands? What should I do? And we really encourage, don't offer your hand. If they offer their hand to you, respond, but that can be a very uncomfortable kind of moment. Many people don't want to shake hands at that point. They will later if it goes well, but as a general rule, it's good to kind of follow the lead of Miss Allen, because she's the one that's initiated this. She has a lot of questions and concerns, and if in doubt of what to say, kind of follow her lead.
Okay.
And we're not there this is not like a court at all. It's not like a fact-finding hearing. It's what's called dialogue. It's a time for just a very honest, open conversation between the two of you.
Okay.
Catherine, can you think of anything else we need to?
No, I can't.
Well, the only other thing is there anything that we've talked about here that you would feel uncomfortable with us sharing with Miss Allen when we see her again next week? It's not like we're going to report on everything, but if she asks, is there anything that you'd feel uncomfortable with us sharing?
No, I don't think so. I think everything that we talked about is okay.
Okay. If you have any questions between now and when we come in the next time, you could mention them to your case manager, Tim, and he could get in touch with us.
Okay.
And what might be helpful would be to, if you're able to, is to write down some of your thoughts of what you might want to say to Gloria Allen. I mean, when you think of it, for example, David, if there was the absolute most important thing you'd want to say to her, what might that be?
To be able to say I was sorry, that I am sorry for that night. And that's the biggest, most haunting thing throughout this whole entire adventure is the fact that I need to say I'm sorry. I don't know that it'll be what it'll do or anything, but maybe take some weight off my shoulder a little bit. I don't know. That would be what I'd want, to be able to say I was sorry. Or to have that opportunity if it presents itself.
I think it's a good way of looking at it, too. That may not be what you can start with. You're never quite sure what to expect. But as we say, we're having these conversations with Miss Allen, so there won't be any, hostilities or anything, so you don't have to worry about that. But it is kind of an unnerving situation, having the opportunity, but also just the weight of the experience. But it has incredible outcomes.
As you think of doing this, David, what's the best that could happen in your mind? What that you'd hope for? I know you've mentioned the apology, but what else?
I guess forgiveness, but that's a lot to ask.
And that may or may not happen. It in many cases it does, in many others it doesn't. We're not going to be pushing that. The purpose of this is not to put pressure on you to say you're sorry, nor is it to put pressure on Miss Allen to forgive. That's all your choice, and people are different on that stuff.
Okay.
What's the worst that could happen in your mind?
That this meeting become a butcher block, to have a place for somebody to vent out a lot of anger at, me, and which I can understand, but I don't want it to turn into a war zone. I don't want to have to be arguing and trying to defend or justify or anything of that night, because there's nothing to defend, there's nothing to justify. The only thing that's there is a huge, huge mistake, and in somebody else's life, a huge loss. So yeah, I wouldn't want it to turn into a fight.
Part of our role is to make sure that it stays a safe place. If it got into any kind of verbal attacking by either one of you, we would be there to kind of redirect things and call a break or whatever. Frankly, that's never happened in the cases we've worked on, and we believe it's because of the preparation. If you just put people together without preparing, that probably is more likely. But just in case it did happen, we would be there to help with that, so we want you to know that. Are there any other questions at all you can think of before we leave now?
No, I can't think of anything right now.
Well, give thought to writing down any questions or concerns you might want to express. And if you're able to do that, if you could have your case manager send them to me, and then Catherine and I can look them over before we come in the next time, okay? Okay, thanks, David.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Catherine and I are really glad that we were able to meet with both of you several times over the last 6 months, Gloria and David. Before we begin tonight, we just needed to say a few things. As we mentioned to you when we met separately, we're here as mediators and facilitators. We're not here to obviously take sides with anybody. We're really here to create a safe enough place where the two of you can talk directly to each other about what happened and the impact it's had on both of your lives. And the only ground rules that we have for this kind of a discussion is that we listen respectfully and talk respectfully to each other without any interruptions. It's easy to kind of interrupt as we kind of get into discussions and if they get a little intense at time. So if we can just allow people to complete their thoughts before the other person speaks. The way we normally proceed in sessions like this is to first give you the opportunity, Gloria, from a person who's been deeply victimized, to tell David the impact that it's had on you and your family. And then, David, you would have time to kind of tell your perspective on what happened. And then it's just wide open in terms of questions you might have and any other concerns that you would have.
I just want to add that if at any time someone needs to take a break, you know, whether it's purposeful or just to get out of the room, stretch your legs, just let us know, and that's fine.
Okay.
Gloria, could you think back when it happened? It was 2 years ago?
Yes.
Can you tell David the impact it had on you?
Well, it was very devastating because I expected to have my son Peter come home from work, and instead I got a call from the police saying that my son was dead, and it had an impact on both me at the time and my children because he was very close to us, and you took part of our family away. And it was, like I said, very devastating. But I wanted to meet with you because I guess I want to know why, what happened, why this, you know, why did you take my son? Because, you know, there's such a loss in our family now. Because he was a good kid, he was in school, he was about your age. You know, and now there's nothing. He'll never have children, so I can have grandchildren. There's a lot of things that go through my mind. What if? But you came and snuffed out his life, you and your brother, Rick. And you could have done something, you know, it just seems all wrong. And I guess I wanted to be with you so that you could tell me why you did this. You and your brother.
Well, I guess, you know, we never set out to do that on purpose. Me and my brother, we've been doing stuff for years together, in and out of trouble, and nothing ever we never even thought of anything like this. But, you know, we'd been drinking all that day and partying and carrying on with a bunch of other people, and we decided that we'd go ahead and do that burglary. And one thing led to another, and, you know, my brother said that, you know, Rick said, well, we can't just leave him there. He's going to identify us and stuff. And I told him, no, what are we going to do? And my brother said, you know, we're going to have to shoot him. And I didn't even know that he had a gun with him, and and he was serious. So he and I went back and forth about that. And the next thing I know, Rick just went ahead and shot him. And I was, you know, it's still today is just a blur. It all happened so fast, and it was, you know, like I said, nothing that I intentionally set out to do, and I know he didn't either, but.
Did my son say anything before you shot him or before your brother shot him?
Well, you know, I don't remember much about once Rick started on about, you know, covering up our identities by shooting him, it all became pretty much a blank to me that whole night.
Why couldn't you have wore a mask or done something else? Why did you have to shoot him? Weren't there other options that you could have taken?
I suppose there could have been if we hadn't been partying all that day and carrying on. And like I said, we never set out and planned this. It was pretty much spur of the moment kind of thing, go out and do it. And the same old scenario, we won't get caught, but it got worse.
Like just a random act of violence?
You know,
Okay.
a random act of pure stupidity. I mean, I know for myself, I personally would never want to, I could never hurt somebody intentionally. And I'm pretty sure Rick either, you know. It doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong, but the partying, I know, had a whole lot to do with it. It's not an excuse.
But how can you speak for Rick? Rick is not here. You're here. And I really don't feel that you could really speak for Rick, what he would do if the occasion arose again. So how can you speak for Rick?
Well, I just from knowing him all my life, I guess. You know, he never talked or anything or acted bad about other people. You know, other than our behavior towards Robin and stuff like that, there wasn't people around or involved, you know.
But you say you know your brother Rick, but yet he killed Peter.
Yeah.
And so maybe you don't know him as well as you think you do.
Yeah, it could be possible because I sure didn't think he'd pull the trigger. Yeah, so I probably don't know him as well as I thought because I never thought he would do that. And like I said, I was like, it's a blank. That after he even did it.
Can you tell me what happened, you know, when you entered the gasoline station, or what prompted you to choose that particular place that night?
Nothing, just circumstances, I guess, seemed right. Didn't seem like we'd get caught. It seemed like a pretty quiet place to get away with it at. Just another random thing.
Well, after you seen that there was someone in the filling station, why didn't you just go turn away and leave? Because I guess you said burglaries, and usually there's no one there. So here you have Peter sitting there counting the receipts and things. Did you see the money? Is that what prompted you to go in there, or what was it?
That, and it just seemed like it would just be real easy to just do. You know, I didn't think, and I didn't think about, you know, the clerk being there or anything. I just thought we'd run in and run out. It didn't work out that way. It went from one thing to the other and got worse. And
Okay.
a lot of fear started setting in, and I think, you know, I mean, like I said, been carrying on all that day, you know, with partying. But like I said, the last thing I ever wanted to happen would be what happened. I just still picture it in my mind as awful.
Well, I just know it was very devastating to me and my family. We expect for Peter to come home. I still feel that he's going to come home. But I know he's never going to come through those doors again. His brothers and sisters, they feel that they want to know, where's their Peter? Where's their older brother? But yet he's not coming home. And I guess I just, you know, I wanted to talk to you because I wanted to know why it was done and to try to put some type of closure between me and my family. Because, like I said, it was a devastating loss, and it really hurts.
Well, there's no real reason why. I mean, we didn't know him. We weren't out to get him. And
he got caught up in our mistake of choices, our behavior, and the reactions of, what was going on. And, he became a victim of Rick's choice.
And your choice.
And
You
my
can't
choice.
put it all
And I
on
was
Rick.
there, I was right there with him, and I did try to stop him, but, I could have, suppose, done more to stop him. But like I said, I really didn't think he'd do it.
Can I ask you, how do you feel now about what you did? Do you have any remorse or anything? Is there?
There's a real huge empty space inside of me that I can't go back and change whatever happened, and I wish I could, because if I could, I wouldn't be here, and you wouldn't be there,
Right.
and yeah, I have a deep sorrow for your family, for my family, for all of the friends and everybody who's related and knows you and I.
So the impact of it has touched a lot of different families in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Gloria, I know when we met with you, I think it was one of the last times, you had asked me about what life in prison was like for David, and I couldn't really tell you. I wasn't sure. Are you interested in?
Yes, I would like to know, what is it like to be locked up and confined into a little tiny space when you had your freedom, and you could still have your freedom if you hadn't chosen the path that you chose?
Being in here is the worst thing there could be, other than, you don't have any rights for anything, it's control, everything, movement. I'm not meeting a lot of people that I particularly want to hang out with. Pretty much stay to myself, read. I'm working. Try to keep as busy as I can. And the past 6 months have been pretty much hard on me, knowing, that this day was coming.
It's been hard on me, too. I wanted to meet you, yet there was some apprehension in my part, but I'm glad I did come. I'm glad I had this opportunity to talk to you.
I guess if I could ever find an opportunity to, I don't know how anybody would even attempt to apologize for something, that I've done or my brother and I have done. Would be, I don't know if this would be a good opportunity, but, I'd like to, say that I'm sorry, and I'm very deeply, deeply sorry for what I've done to your family. I know that can't take back the fact, but...
No, I can't bring Peter back, but I do accept your apology, and because it takes a big person to apologize for when they've done wrong, and to accept what they've done. So, I respect you for that.
I just can't imagine, for 2 years I've been laying here thinking what it's like for you and your family, because, I only have Rick as a brother, and if that happened to him, what would I be thinking? How would I be feeling? And I couldn't find myself ever feeling very good about it, losing someone like that in that way.
Oh, it is hard. It's very hard. Like I said, we still expect for Peter to come home, and he's not coming. But I hope, David, that you learned something from this. And I hope Rick has too. I don't know Rick, and so I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't know where he's at now either. He's somewhere else. So I don't know if I'll, see him again or not.
Mm-hmm.
They keep us apart right now. So I don't know how he feels. I don't even know that he knows that this is happening.
Okay.
But for me, I'm glad it is. I can't speak for him. But
And I'm glad we had this opportunity also.
I wish that there would be a way that I could make, life a little easier for you out there, but I can't. I can't take back.
And I understand that. And I guess I wouldn't expect you to. I just hope that when you get out, that you have children, that you'd be, you'd think about their choices that they make for themselves and be there for them.
Before we kind of wrap things up, any other questions or concerns?
I don't think so.
Okay. David?
I'm just glad I had this opportunity to speak to David.
And how are you feeling at this point, David?
Well, I'm not as fearful as I was. I feel by being able to apologize to you that there's a weight of a burden that's been weighing on me, because I've been concerned about you and your family, and not knowing has been the most devastating part. So now that I know you a little bit and how you feel and stuff, I think I can maybe rest a little better. Not that I'll be able to rest comfortably ever, but knowing you makes it easier. Doesn't make the whole thing better, though.
No, and it's not going to make it disappear either, but I appreciate, you talking to me, and it will put a little closure for me. I guess I'm glad that you met with me. I'm happy that you did this. But it's the first step. And maybe, there might be other steps where you can help others at some time in your life.
Catherine, any other comments before we kind of close up things?
Nothing that's really pressing. I just want to acknowledge, the risk that both of you took, and first in agreeing to do this, but also just sharing some real painful pieces of your past and your present. So hopefully it will help.
I hope so.
And I also want to acknowledge the courage it's taken on both of your parts to come together like this. And after we close this session, Catherine and I will both do a little debriefing with you right after, just to kind of check in how you're doing, okay?
That's fine.
Thanks again for coming together like this and having the courage to address this very openly.
Thank you for allowing it to happen.
Mm-hmm. Gloria, now that it's complete, you've had the meeting with David, how are you feeling at this point compared to when you first came in today?
Well, I was nervous and kind of scared, but I'm a little more relaxed now. I got some of the things off my chest that I wanted to, and it really feels good. He made it a very easy, he's an easy person to talk to. So I feel good about that.
I know you had mentioned in our other meetings that getting an apology was so important How did you feel about the way David responded?
It was good. It's very good. I felt he was sincere. And it's taken some of the burden. All of it's not gone, because I'll always miss Peter, but some of it's gone, but not all of it. But I feel he was sincere in what he had said and how it happened and what happened. So yes, I feel relieved. I can now take a deep breath and feel relaxed. Sleep a little better, rest a little better, explain to my children a little better. A lot of things can go, we can come together more as a family now. When before, I was kind of irritable and because I was thinking about Peter and what happened to Peter, but now that I know what's happened, it's a lot better.
Well, David, I know you had some anxieties, a bit of nervousness about the process. How are you feeling now?
Well, for 2 years now, I've carried this weight on me, this burden, and this unknown of, Peter's family and, me not ever having an opportunity to, I have to confront that, and I need to apologize. I need to say I was sorry and, let the family know about how I feel inside is I'm tore up. And now that I've met with Peter's mother, I feel like that burden's been lifted. And I may be able to, it's not peaceful in here by all means, but I may be able to rest a little better, knowing that I was able to meet her and look at her face to face and let her know how I really feel.
When we spoke with you at our first meeting, you said that it was real important for you to be able to apologize. Did it have the impact that you hoped that it would have for yourself?
So far, but I believe that it's going to be setting in, over the next few days. Yeah, I believe.
Was there anything you wanted to say that you didn't get a chance to say?
No, I think I was given a fair opportunity.
And you're doing all right with it now?
Yeah, for now.
Okay. Good.
I think when working with crime victims, it's critical that facilitators working maybe in their environment that's very normal for them as a facilitator could be very intimidating for crime victims, and just being sensitive to how their perspectives might be different because of their comfort level going in and out of prisons possibly. When they're preparing to meet with an offender as well, crime victims may or may not have concerns that they're sharing with you, and I would really encourage facilitators to never hesitate to ask what they're feeling and all of that, because sometimes a victim may be wanting to be polite and not say that they're feeling scared or they're concerned.
I think one of the most important things is to listen to the survivor, listen to the victim, be where they are. A lot of times we have certain expectations, and those are our own expectations. We need to be in the place, and we need to be where the victims are. I also think that we need to create a safe environment. That may mean going to the victim's home and meeting with the victim in a place that's safe for them, that's comfortable for them, a place that they can really, truly feel safe and express themselves. And that may mean going that extra mile. That may mean making additional phone calls, sometimes after hours. A lot of times victims work and they're not available until in the evening. So I think that the most important thing is to think about yourself. And if you were in their situation, or think about yourself if you're a victim, how would you want to be treated? How would you want people to respond to you? What would you want someone to do to make you feel the most comfortable? And I think that if you do that, you can't go wrong.
I think it's important to recognize that victims wanting and asking for and begging for dialogue in crimes of severe violence from correctional agencies is nothing new. I can remember more than a decade ago where this idea was first brought up, of course, with correctional administrators saying, not on my watch. But just as with many other corrections-based victim services, I think attitudes have begun to change. And I would tell any correctional administrator to talk to your colleagues in Texas, in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, and the many other states that are developing these programs, because I have talked to them, and they have said it's one of the best programs they sponsor. They have told me that it in no way compromises the security that is their primary focus as administrators of adult correctional agencies. And they have also told me it's become just a valuable part of their victim services program. And one that is really important in terms of having victims identify what they perceive to be one of their major needs and having the capacity of correctional agencies to meet that need, which I find to be very rare. And I think anytime we can meet a victim's need throughout correctional processes, we should make every attempt to do that.
I'm Reggie Wilkinson, Director of the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. Our department has taken an active role in restorative justice, or community justice as we call it,